We are well into 2025, and already the balance of things is all out of whack because Bungie woke up and finally decided to do something about destabilizing rounds being completely junked. So that's great. But since you didn't keep or craft any weapons with that trait because it stunk for so long, I'm going to look at 10 of the best weapons that you can get with destabilizing rounds on them. Before we do that, we should probably see what the changes actually are though. The cooldown and activations between volatile explosions has been reduced from 4 seconds to 1.5 seconds, which is already a huge change right there. But then if you tag someone else with that volatile blast, you're going to be granted a few seconds of volatile rounds. It is so much better than it ever was. It's crazy how just these little changes on paper actually make a crazy difference. It feels like it finally lives up to perks like Volt Shot and Incandescent and perks like that. It's really great. The changes were fantastic. And there seems to be something going on with the volatile rounds right now. I don't know if you get multiple activations that it adds 2 seconds for each activation. I thought there'd be kind of a cooldown there, but a lot of times when I'm just firing into a group of ads, I'm getting 5, 6, even 7 seconds of volatile rounds. It kind of feels like I have Gerfalcon's Hauberk on all the time, no matter what class I'm playing. It's wild. So overall, the improvement is pretty sizable. And since I'm a cool YouTuber that you should definitely subscribe to, I'm gonna give you my top pick first instead of making you wait 10 minutes. Choir of One is my top choice. Choir absolutely bullies activities across the game even before the buffs, but the buff to disabling rounds is only gonna make it more disgusting. You've got massive firepower, solid range, decent ammo economy, and now increased interaction with subclass verbs. There's really not a lot more that you can ask for. While this exotic does come from a pretty tedious exotic mission, I think it's easily a top 5 exotic from the last 2 to 3 years. It's really solid stuff, and if you're interested, feel free to check out the description. I'm going to leave a link to a full guide for Choir of One in there. It is kind of a long mission, like I said, but it's well worth it, and while you're snooping around the description, check out my Twitch where I stream every weekend, as well as my Discord. We've got a real chill group of people over there, and we even run a community event called Trials of Cobalt from time to time, so definitely stop by if you need a group to hang out with. The rest of the weapons on this list are legendary weapons, and we've got a lot to get through, so let's get started. Starting off with ad clear primaries, and in no particular order of strength at this point, we've got the Recluse at number 2. SMGs are in a much better place than they've been over the last couple years, and frankly, I'm just looking for an excuse to use one of my 8 different shiny rolls. A week ago, I wouldn't be recommending SMGs, but they're dealing more damage now, and they got a nice magazine buff a couple weeks ago as well, so they're a lot better than they used to be. Recluse also has nice rolls like Enlightened Action or Feeding Frenzy for faster reloads, or Repulsor Brace if you want to keep the overshields coming. So while it's a pretty decent weapon on its own, it also has nice traits to go along with destabilizing rounds. Similarly, at number 3, we have Reckless Oracle from Garden of Salvation. Garden got its much needed refresh, and with it, a sweet auto rifle with destabilizing rounds. I always liked Oracle for the bullet hose that it is, and now that you can craft it, you can much more easily cancel out the weaknesses it had, like abysmal recoil control or stability. It was pretty terrible to use before, but it's in better shape now. Auto rifles are also doing a little bit better with a minor damage buff this update as well, so if it felt like you were just shooting a water gun before, it should feel at least like a slightly larger water gun. Either way, something about laying on the trigger with a massive magazine and cascading void explosions from one to the next is really satisfying. And the cool thing about Reckless Oracle is that since destabilizing rounds is present in the first column, you can pair it with powerful damage traits to layer on more damage. One for All is a favorite of mine since you're really just spraying and praying with a rapid fire weapon, but you also have solid options like Kill Clip or Paracausal Affinity for smaller but more reliable damage buffs. If you find yourself using a melee build, there's also Swashbuckler, so you've got options. And since we're talking about raid weapons, let's just stay on track with 2 more. Weapon number 4 on my list is Word of Crota. Word of Crota is what clutched up for me in Day 1 Warlord's Ruin, and is in my opinion one of the most underrated primaries in the game. My favorite role is Destabilizing Rounds plus Dragonfly. Both traits are going to cause your enemies to explode, so the combined result is just a mini nuke on every kill, really. Hand cannons are a lot better than they used to be in PvE and have gotten really good damage buffs over the last year or so, and Word of Crota is really easy to just put out efficient damage with. Good mag size, good traits, solid magazine, and really easy to control and land headshot after headshot. Now that destabilizing rounds is buffed, you're going to be able to spread even more volatility. If you want to go another direction, there's also Repulsor Brace and Subsistence or Enlightened Action for the improved reload, so you have a number of the usual options here. But Dragonfly and destabilizing rounds is a really fun and pretty unusual combination. It's really effective, I enjoy it a lot, I highly recommend it. And if you're worried, Crota's End is a free raid and it's pretty easy, so if it's in the weekly rotation, you should be able to find a pretty decent group in LFG without too much trouble. Maybe. Probably not. In that vein, we have weapon number 5, Ancient Gospel, another void hand cannon from Garden of Salvation. Hand cannons are improved as of late, and sometimes I just like rocking a 140 to kind of keep that mid-range distance from my enemies, but still have the flexibility to be close range, and Ancient Gospel offers a nice array of traits that kind of let you do that. Like before with Reckless Oracle, we've got destabilizing rounds in the first column, so you can pair it with any number of handy damage traits like Kill Clip, Swashbuckler, or even the ever-steady explosive rounds, which is roughly 10% extra damage all the time. I really like damage perks with these stabilizing rounds because it just helps you secure those kills a little bit faster and easier, and now that the cooldown is much faster for the volatile explosions, I think it'll just be even easier to just roll through burn down rooms faster than ever. I'd probably slot Ancient Gospel a solid notch below Word of Crota, but it looks cool at least, and you know, it's nice to have different options. For number 6, we're moving into the heavy slot with Hammerhead. Man, I love Hammerhead. Just a fantastic gun, another beautiful shiny weapon from Onslaught, and it has some fantastic traits to pair with destabilizing rounds. You've got Target Lock for sustained easy damage, Killing Tally for a damage boost for the whole mag, Surrounded for huge chunk damage if you're in close quarters, and Onslaught if you want to just ramp up the chaos and the rate of fire with each kill. I think Onslaught is probably the least efficient perk, but man, is it so much fun. I think this is going to be one of the best ad clearing weapons in the game in light of the sandbox changes. You got massive subclass utility now and fantastic traits for damage that are easy to keep up with. Hammerhead is just so easy to control and land rapid headshots with. Really set up well to shred. I think Actium Warrig Titans are probably going to have a great time with destabilizing rounds and Onslaught, or maybe Killing Tally. Warlocks are going to be able to use more void abilities to get Devour and will probably do well with Desperate Measures. And Hunters, I don't know, whatever. Just throw on Gerfalcons or something. And just remember, if you feel annoyed because you'll never get these weapons and Bungie always hides the best weapons behind paywalls and whatever, well, that's actually not the case here. You can easily farm Hammerhead, Recluse, and 10 other fantastic weapons from Onslaught, which is a free-to-play node in the Vanguard category. And if you want to focus your weapons, you can stop by Zavala and go to the Onslaught tab and then focus a specific weapon for a 60% drop chance from any Onslaught chest. Really fantastic stuff. They made it pretty easy to get these weapons, and frankly, Onslaught is still one of the most fun modes to me, so it's fun to play and the weapons are great. Really can't go wrong. If you're a new player, Onslaught is really one of the best and fastest ways to get S tier weapons. Almost all of them are just absolutely fantastic, either in PvP or PvE, and it's well worth your time. Weapon number 7, Edge Transit, yet another Onslaught weapon. I wanted to make sure to include a bunch of free weapons so anyone can get these, but Edge Transit is just another easy S tier weapon. Massive damage from great traits, but also add clear with destabilizing rounds, which is our focus today. Sometimes your loadout is good enough that you can use a heavy for ad clear, which can be really great. Sure, the ammo's costly, but grenade launchers can clear a room faster than a nuclear fart with traits like chain reaction and destabilizing rounds together. And again, you'll get a couple seconds of volatile rounds with Edge Transit after kills, so you'll just be spraying death wherever you look. I really like this option for Grandmasters with the Oscillation mod on. If it's charged, one shot can really kill any ad other than a champion, and it's just a really powerful, fun, and kind of different option. Most people prefer the straight up damage options like bait and switch. Frankly, I do most of the time as well, but sometimes it's just really fun to double down on the explosions and go crazy. Weapon number 8 could have easily been number 2 on the list if we were just going by raw power, and that's VS Velocity Baton from Vesper's Host. It's an area denial grenade launcher and has been extremely popular for good reason, even before the changes to destabilizing rounds. Now that you'll be able to spread that volatility even more, yeah, that's enough reason even for me to suffer through Vesper's Host with randos. Demolitionist and destabilizing rounds seems like the perfect combination, especially for Warlocks and Devour builds, but also just from the standpoint that you can use grenade kills to grant volatile rounds on Void or Prismatic. That's going to be a really nice roll. The orb printing roll is fantastic as always to keep the abilities flowing, but if you want a more synergistic roll with your subclass, destabilizing rounds is going to be the way to go. And you know, something worth remembering is that we have expanded options for our weapon mods, and most of them are actually pretty decent now. Synergy will create elemental pickups matching your weapon energy after a multi-kill, so Velocity Baton has the capacity to just create void breaches at will. Over time, as the artifact changes, you never know when that's going to be really helpful. For number 9, I've got Chronophage, the Void Trace Rifle from Echoes. Our Trace Rifle is really my favorite in PvE, not particularly, but Bungie does seem to be buffing them over time, and some people really do enjoy them, and with the right build, they can definitely be capable weapons. Chronophage sports pretty decent traits as well, like Repulsor Brace, Pugilist for melee builds, Strategist for class ability regen, or Feeding Frenzy for speedy reloads. Maybe Titans could take advantage of Pugilist with a Doomfang build, or Repulsor Brace just to keep the shields topped off. It's all really the usual stuff. Now, what I like about Trace Rifles, especially in this context, is that they're extremely high RPM, so once you get those 2 seconds of volatile rounds, you could realistically just do a quick sweep and tag a ton of enemies in the room with volatility. That's not really something you can do with low RPM weapons like we mentioned with Word of Crota or Ancient Gospel earlier, so I think there's a little bit of extra utility there in a way. Trace Rifles are also really solid in double special builds, which might be something of interest this season since fusion rifles are going to absolutely cook with the artifact mod. Now lastly, at number 10, in honor of the fusion rifle meta, I think Zealot's Reward, the rapid fire fusion from Garden of Salvation, is a solid pickup. It's got destabilizing rounds in the first column, and then damage perks like Kickstart, One for All, Successful Warm-Up, which buffs your DPS, and then Rampage. There are much better raw DPS fusions in my opinion, like Scatter Signal out there, and I think you'll probably want to use those, and I think you'll want to use those for damage and boss scenarios. But in terms of like general ad clear and dealing with majors, stuff like that, I've got my eye on Zealot's Reward with destabilizing rounds and One for All for that chunky 35% damage boost. I think with destabilizing rounds and then the damage boost from particle deconstruction and then One for All layered on top of that, Zealot's Reward is going to be a really fun, strong option for burning down ads and even medium health targets. And who knows, once you got the damage buff going, it might even be decent against champs as well. I just love the way that Zealot's Reward looks. It's just such a cool weapon. I love having an excuse to use it. And this season with the buffs to destabilizing rounds and the artifact mods for fusion rifles, I think Zealot is in a really good spot. Not to mention, really great weapon in PvP. It's got some crazy perks. Closing time, slide shot, and under pressure on top of that. Both things are going to be contributing to your ability to land shots, and it is disgusting. So there's my little nugget for the PvP crowd in here. Sorry, this was like all a PvE video. Anyways, that's going to do it. There are definitely way more weapons with destabilizing rounds on it, but these weapons, in my opinion, are some of the best that you can pick up. If you think I'm totally wrong, leave a comment with your favorite void weapon and what build you're rocking for Heresy. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. That's really helpful. I appreciate it. I'll be making more videos now that Heresy is here, covering all the new loot and making some builds as well, so definitely subscribe for those and follow on Twitch for weekend shenanigans on Friday and Saturday night. That'll be all for now. I'm really sick of typing the word destabilizing. I'm pretty sure I've misspelled it every time, so you may never hear me speak of this trait again. Thanks again so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.